Recording in progress.
Aspen Pitkin County Housing Authority Board meeting for January 15th, 2025. Regular scheduled meeting slightly after 4 o'clock. First item on the agenda is call the meeting to order. Second item is roll call, and we do have a quorum.
Okay, so first I'll go on Zoom. Francie? Here. Thank you.
Here.
John Doyle?
Here.
Kelly?
I'm here.
John Ward?
Present.
Carson?
Here.
Ward? Howenstein? And Scott?
Present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is, do we have any amendments if requested? I don't think we did any. Any changes to our agenda tonight? Okay, I'll confirm that. Public comment is the next item. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? Anybody online? Anybody in the room? I don't believe we do. Moving through that. Next item on the agenda is Board of Director comments. I'm going to start online as we did before. Francie, any comments tonight?
I have no comments. Thank you, Carson.
Yes, ma'am. Much better. I'm much better looking than Carson, Francie.
Who is it? You see, I can't see anything.
It's John Ward.
Who is it? John Ward, you're the chair?
Yes, ma'am. You voted for me, I hope. All right. Next item on the agenda is John Doyle. Our next board member, John Doyle.
No comments tonight, thanks.
Kelly.
I guess I'll just say that I'm not fully plugged in yet, but normally in the legislature, we find things we want to pay attention to. I think there's chatter about some construction defect type lawsuits and things, legislation that we might want to keep an eye on. I'll do a better job on bringing more substantial reports back to you all at the next meeting.
Okay.
On some of that. Thank you.
Shoot, I'm drawing a blank over here.
Scott.
Sorry, Scott. Any comments this evening?
No comments, thank you.
Carson.
None for me.
Ward.
First of all, congratulations to Francie that somebody actually ran for county commissioner and got elected and got sworn in yesterday. So,
Thank you.
I don't know if you were here at the last meeting, but since you weren't here, you got elected as treasurer again. So,
I forgot
Perfect.
to tell
I'll
you.
keep the books.
I am really interested in the construction defect legislation. I've been pushing for that for a long time, and I know that the cost of insurance because of those construction defects is astronomical, and it is a real barrier to building housing, workforce housing for sale. It doesn't come into effect with the rentals as much, but for sale units, it 79 units at Burlingame 3. The insurance that we had to pay for that was, I think it was $3 million. And it was, $600,000 for 79 units for Burlingame 2. So that's an extra family you could have housed if you didn't have this construction defect. So I really want you and the board here to pay close attention to that, and anything we can do to lobby to lessen those impacts on workforce housing for sale units, we should lobby for and support. And my the other comment I have is where are we on having a retreat to set our 5-year, as in your, okay? And I don't know if we have a venue for it, but I've been up to Toklat a couple of times since it opened.
Toklat. It's
Toklat.
way up.
Art gallery.
Yeah, it's way up.
It's up at Ashcroft, and there's some really good meeting rooms, and it would be a wonderful venue for a retreat. And they do have, let's see, Trevor called it a chef's kitchen. I would have called it a commercial kitchen, but it would be a great venue if we haven't chosen a location or for that.
Thanks, Ward.
That's it.
Thank you, Ward. My comments are really to do with, we've seen in the news the last week, the fire damages in Southern California. It's a scary thing. In my other life as a board member on the Fire Protection District's done a lot of things to increase awareness, increase firefighters, decrease response times. We put some cameras in the sky several years ago, using AI to detect fires, and that stuff certainly works. But we've got an inefficient entrance in and out of town, and I get the opportunity to sit in this room with a few decision makers to hopefully sway you guys a little bit to really get on that horse after 27 years of living in Aspen. That was one of the biggest things in the news when I moved to town, and still hasn't been done, hasn't been taken care of. And I think you've got stakeholders up and down this valley that I believe should be a part of that discussion, whether they're from Glenwood Springs to Rifle to Silt to Basalt to Carbondale. There's a lot of people that come into town and serve Aspen every day of the week, including Saturdays and Sundays, and to have to sit in traffic like a lot of people do. We've done a lot of things with the bus service, and it's certainly a nice way, and I encourage people that work for me to take the bus. But in a panic situation, when you're trying to get out of town, it is going to be pure chaos, and we got to have some kind of solution that makes it an efficient, safe means to get out of town. Because like Roger Merolt said in the paper, was it yesterday? It's probably not if, it's probably when. And we can only do so much prevention. We can only prepare firefighters and professionals that can respond to this, but we still have to be able to keep people safe. So that's my soapbox, and that's all I got tonight.
John, you're preaching to the choir.
Next item on the agenda is ED comments. Matthew.
Good afternoon, everyone. Matthew Gillen, Executive Director. Just have two things tonight. 2025 is a biannual affidavit year, and thanks to Bethany and team's work, we are going to ask for W-2s and taxes this year. So it's kind of combining the audits with the affidavits, which will give us a much better indication that everybody is doing everything correctly. And I do have an update on the strategic plan. We've had a real push both in English and Spanish for the community survey, both on social media, in newspaper ads, all over the place. We've had over 270 responses to the survey. The survey's open until midnight tonight. We extended it, so still time to contribute to that. John Doherty is going to brief the board at the next board meeting about the survey. And then also on February 18th and 19th, we're doing community sessions run by John at the Aspen Police Department room. And we're going to be doing that in the late afternoon and also an evening session to get most people available for that. So John's briefing the board at the next board meeting, and then he's suggesting Wednesday, February 26th for a morning retreat for the board to firm everything up. So I'll send out an invitation. If anybody has if anybody's on vacation or anything, let me know. But that's the proposal. So I'll send out an invitation for that. And thank you for the suggestion for where to do it, John.
What do you envision the survey results? What are we going to get to see on that?
You'll get to. That's what John he'll be going over that at the next board meeting.
Well, it will be.
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to be a summary? Or are we going to get to see direct comments from
I think there'll be direct
respondents?
comments.
What will they be?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I go?
Yes,
Oh, thank
sorry,
you.
Kelly.
No worries. Okay. I'm very uptight as a chair, so I'm not sure what your style is, but okay. I'm wondering, I have received some feedback about the survey relative to our Spanish language outreach, and that it not showing up in Spanish language media publications or issue, and I didn't look at the Spanish, so I'm just relaying the feedback I received. And some issues with not all of the information was presented in Spanish. That made it confusing. And I know it's closing tonight, so maybe for future reference, but what are we doing for these outreach sessions on February 18th and 19th to provide bilingual, bicultural?
That is a great point.
Outreach. I can
The
suggest someone
yeah,
who
I mean-
does like on-site translation, so you can have, people wear headphones and they can hear in
Okay.
one language and speak in the other. If that's helpful
That's very
to
helpful.
contract for this.
And I'm confused, I'm saddened that they said it wasn't the same in Spanish, because we did have it professionally translated, the whole survey, so I don't think that's quite correct, and we did.
Well, I think like some of the headers were in English and then the questions were in Spanish, and so that the consistency was missing, is what the feedback was to me.
Okay, thank you.
And then just, we had it in the local papers, but the comment I heard was that the same ads weren't available in like the Spanish language publications in the Valley. So just opportunities to improve that we
Great.
can do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Could you give us some kind of a feeling for the senior? You've had a couple of senior.
That's on the agenda,
It's coming up.
that's coming up on the agenda, that's part of the agenda tonight, yeah.
And then I hate to take the air out of a balloon, but the 26th is going to be tough because we have a BOCC voting session
Okay.
at noon that day.
Yeah, they meet the second and fourth Wednesdays
Okay, let me,
during the day.
all right, I'll go back to John tomorrow and we'll
And
go
then
back
just
and
so you
forth
know,
with
the
some dates.
19th, we're also doing our board retreat.
Okay.
So don't try to schedule it on February 19th.
You guys need to share.
Because that was our regular meeting, so
Yeah.
you have a board retreat on
Yeah.
February 19th?
Yeah, but we can plan, I can make sure that I'm
Okay,
here
we'll,
for
we'll, around that
Okay.
time, we'll get
Yeah.
some time, and I'll
Okay,
email you all with some dates
Yeah,
as soon as we can.
great. Yeah.
Get that nailed down.
even March 5th, the next week would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Further comments? Questions for Matthew? Cindy, do you have any updates for us?
We're still going through the list that we did, I think, towards the end of last year for our rentals. We still haven't gotten to the bottom, and we still have units available. Just make sure that you sign up for notifications, and when we do advertise again, to make sure you sign up for those. We will on Friday have, we haven't had sales for the last few weeks, but we will have a studio category 4 coming up on Friday. After 5 is when the listing goes live. So again, be sure you sign up for notifications.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. We have the minutes of the December 11th meeting and approval of Resolution 1. Do I have anybody that would like to motion? Yes, ma'am.
Before I make a motion, I do just want to revisit something that Matthew said, because I think we glossed over it, but it's going to be a bigger deal than our glossing over gives to it, related to the affidavit. I suggest maybe we put out a press release relative to that expectation, because that is a change. Not that we haven't forecasted that for many years, but it will still take people by surprise.
And I think we have absolutely, Kelly, and I think we have a pretty good precedent on how it works with the audits, which we have been asking for W-2s and tax returns, so I think we're in a pretty good shape, but yeah, we will make sure that is properly flagged, and we have a really good relationship now, as you know, with the City of Aspen Communications, and we've done several press releases with them over the holiday period, so we're pretty good at that now, so yeah, we'll make sure
great.
that happens.
Okay, thank you. And with that,
And take them as separate items.
you would like to break them out?
Yeah, let's do them
Okay.
as separate.
All right, so I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 11th meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have discussion.
My only piece would be, please make sure to spell my name right.
Oh.
One T, two L's, no R's.
I will do that.
Thank you.
I just wanna take that.
Okay, with that correction made, we'll do a roll call vote on the minutes. Cindy?
Okay. Kelly,
Yes.
John,
Yes? Well, which one?
Ford,
Yes.
Carson,
Yes.
Scott.
Okay,
Yes.
right. All right,
My first names, I
the
guess.
minutes passed by, well, I was thinking John doesn't get to vote, right?
Right.
Not one
There's
word's
a ward
here.
here. All right, so minutes pass unanimously. Second item on the consent calendar is the approval of Resolution 1. I will motion to approve Resolution 1, Series of 2025, appropriating up to $255,000 from the 632 APCHA Housing Development Fund for the purchase of 2007 Kathryns Way. Do I have a second?
I'll second that and open, I have some
Yeah,
discussion.
discussion. Go ahead, Ward.
Yeah, I want to know, this is a Snyder property that is, it might be only turn, I just want more background on it.
We have several different ideas what to do with it, including related to discussions we had at the last board meeting. But we also may use it as an opportunity to improve it and sell it back using available funds. So it popped up. We thought it was a good target opportunity for a number of different options. So we haven't quite decided what we want to do with it yet, Ward.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea to bring these up to standard. I was just curious, how big is the unit? How old is it? What is the maximum allowable sale price, and what would it be sold for once APCHA buys it
We'd
and
be
fixes it?
hoping to get any money we put into it back at the point of sale. But
It's a 3-bedroom unit with a garage. And we believe that with the, because the purchase prices that we're selling it, we're buying it from the seller is less than this. This gives us funds to bring it up to standards, and then at that point in time, assess it and see what, there's a maximum sales price for a category 3 3-bedroom, and it's a little bit more than this. So we have room to work with. We wouldn't sell it more than that category 3 3-bedroom maximum sales price that's in the regulations now.
And when we've been doing kind of our strategic planning for the coming year, we've been talking about, a pilot program to do this, but then this came up and we're like, well, okay, this could be a pilot for the pilot to see, as we talk about these things, what we need to know. But we thought it was a good opportunity to take this property using APCHA funds.
Is this the first time that this unit is turned?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the person who owns it now is the son of the original owner, because it was deeded to the son. So, but yes, it's basically has had basically one owner.
Which is why it's so cheap.
Right.
Yeah, which is why another reason we thought it'd be a good one to grab.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an amazing value.
Yeah.
And Snyder is a great place.
Yes.
I looked it up. Who do we typically, are we gonna do a house flipping thing on this, or what? Who do we typically?
Well,
don't know
that's
yet.
what remains to be seen. We'll keep you
Do we find a
updated. Yeah.
contractor? Do we have somebody
Yeah,
on?
that remains to be seen, but we'll keep you updated on our plans for it.
Have you done an inspection?
You visited? Yeah, Cindy's been in there.
I have not been in it yet. I plan on going into it in a week, but the inspection report has already been done. And that's when we've noticed that it does need quite a bit of work. So, and so we thought that this might be a good opportunity with some other aspects that are out there as well, that we have a chance to really bring this up to the regular standards and be able to see how that goes and decide on how we're going to end up selling this unit. But the intent is that it will be owned by a family.
And it will go into the lottery.
We think, yeah.
There was a couple other scenarios where it wouldn't, but we'll keep you updated
But
on
that's
Yeah.
in complex bidding, or what?
based on the conversations at the last board meeting.
Yeah.
What's the HOA look like? as far as financial?
I couldn't tell you at this point in time. I don't know if they were part of the capital reserve program. I have not.
It's something we should look at
Yeah.
before you take ownership of it, right?
They are usually, I went to a couple of their meetings quite a few years ago, and they were very active in making sure that they were taking care of the property. So I can't see that changed over the last few years, but I don't know if they were part of the, Liz might know. Did Snyder Park opt into the capital reserve program?
No, they did not.
Okay, okay. They might have one done, but that's something that we can talk with them, that we can meet with them and see if they've done one.
How old is Snyder now? I remember when it was built, but my memory just fades together.
And I can't remember.
What I'm trying to get on this is, are we on the original roof on the common areas?
Oh, yeah.
So if we're on the original roof, it's gotta be coming in to the end of its,
That's a possibility. That's one of the reasons why we want to purchase this. I don't remember the roof being part of the issue with regards to the inspection report. I could be wrong, but I don't remember that part of it.
yeah, where I'm going with it is there are several buildings in that Snyder
Yes.
property that have roofs that are
But
these-
that's, yes,
These roofs are part of the common area
Yeah.
and they're part of the HOA's
right,
responsibility.
exactly.
So, and if their cap reserves are not adequate and they need a new roof, then each of the owners is gonna be looking at a substantial special assessment.
That's right. That's what we ended up having to do where I live, yeah. Is we had to get a loan. And we have a special assessment that we're paying to pay off the roof that we had done where I live.
What's your interest rate?
It was last year that we did it. I can't remember what the interest rate was. I think we got it through Alpine Bank. But we got a pretty good, at that point in time, we got a pretty decent rate.
I'm just noticing that the language in Resolution 1 on page 11 of our packet says up to $287,000, and the
That's the
agenda
max,
items-
that's the maximum sales price for category 3.
So are we approving the 255 or the 287?
I would like to approve the 287.
What is the maximum for
That's-
that unit as it stands now?
The maximum for the sales price, what the maximum sales price is without anything, what the current owner can sell it for, is about 248.
So shouldn't that be what we should be buying it for?
Well, this is giving us the appropriation so that we can fix the unit afterwards. We're only gonna pay what the maximum sales price is to that person at this point in time. That person is not getting this amount.
Okay,
That
so they'll
owner.
be getting
This is just
240.
appropriating the funds so we can buy it, and then we can bring it up to standards.
So the 248 is what the current owner is gonna get, 287
I
is
have
what
to
the
look at
maximum.
at the contract that we have with that person. And I cannot remember. I really apologize, but I can't remember. But it's under this by about $45,000.
And the assumption here is that $45,000 is enough for the
Yes,
margin for us to get it
absolutely.
up to a saleable state.
Yep, yep.
Well, so, I mean, the motion was to appropriate
I know.
255, so we need to amend our motion.
Yes,
The resolution is a little unclear. You know, I guess it's up to 255 to purchase the unit, and then another 32,000 for expenditures is what
well,
we're saying here then, right?
it's, because it's the purchase price is under 255,000.
So we just want to appropriate 287,000. So amend the motion to appropriate 287,000 for the purchase and rehabilitation of 207 Kathryns Way.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
You have to get whoever made the motion to
was
amend
me.
it, and then Ward should second it.
And Ward
if
seconded
it's
it. Are
Yes,
you,
I'll accept that amendment.
Okay,
But I'm,
further discussion?
yeah, I'm curious on how are we gonna handle this, that, APCHA's buying it, putting money into it, and reselling it, capturing all of those, hopefully capturing all of those funds that were
Right.
put in to bring it up.
right.
How does that sit with the rest of the APCHA community? How does that mesh?
Just a question, should we,
Microphone?
should this discussion be moved to after the executive session?
No.
No, okay.
No. You can pull it if you want, then we're good. You'll have to try. The person in it now wants to do a sale as fast as possible.
Well, here's my thought on that, Ward, and go ahead, Kelly, I didn't see your hand up.
Oh, I guess I was gonna follow up with Ward's question to ask, if it has the most recent deed restriction on it, then APCHA acts as the intermediary owner, for just this opportunity. But I don't.
It has a right of first refusal on which we're
Okay.
exercising, yes.
Well, see, I look at it, if we have a unit that needs considerable rehabilitation, right, we always have the option to buy those
Right.
units. APCHA should absorb those costs, rehabilitate the unit, and then try to recoup our costs on the sale of the next unit. Then you're not passing the burden onto that buyer to go, you get 10% to do this, you get your 28,000 or whatever, 25,000 or whatever it is to do it, to add to your value. And really, you're adding, to me, no value, because you're just doing
Yeah.
lipstick on a pig, basically. You're probably replacing carpets, countertops, bathroom, whatever it is. This way, APCHA controls it, we control the process, we sell it in good condition to a new owner. They're not burdened with having to bring it up to standards or whatever else, and maybe that doesn't even happen in the next 10 years of ownership. To me, I don't see us having a conflict here at all. I don't think the community as a whole has an issue with it.
I guess I would just say the only thing I would correct about your statement is I don't think all of the deed restrictions that exist offer the right of first refusal, and so we wouldn't always be in the position to buy them. We'd be if we did that, if we didn't have a first refusal, we'd be operating out of our own against our own regulations for a lottery. But in this case, it sounds like we do have that.
Yeah, so my concern is that if somebody else bought this unit, put in repairs, the price gets reset at a maximum of 10% of the.
It doesn't get reset.
Well, if somebody bought it, they can put 10%
Right.
into it, and that price gets reset by the 10%.
It doesn't get reset.
Well,
The price always, if you buy it for $200,000 and you put $20,000 worth of capital improvements in it, your property appreciates at that $200,000. At the appreciation, then you take the depreciated value of the $20,000 that they put into it, and that's your maximum sales price.
Right.
What this does is it allows us to fix it. They're buying it at a higher price, but they've got that in their mortgage. So the work is done and it's included in their mortgage, and they're buying a unit that they don't have to do any of that work. It might cost them a little bit more, but all that work is done and it appreciates at the value that they buy it from.
okay, in this scenario, somebody buys it. If it goes through a lottery, somebody buys it at the maximum sale price.
Right. Well, whatever, yeah.
Okay, what the numbers are unimportant to me
Right.
at this point. They put $20,000 in
Additional into it.
additional into it, so that's roughly the 10% or 28,000 or whatever they put into it as additional. But then they put an extra $8,000, $10,000 to bring it up to the minimum standards. So now what you have is a unit that had a maximum sale price plus a 10% that they can recoup, and it wouldn't depreciate because it's being turned over immediately. But then above that, you have another delta, and I mean, I'm just seeing how do we legally justify the recouping over the 10%?
What's hard for people to
Can I
understand.
explain?
Sure, Tom. Sorry, didn't see your hand up.
Okay, so first of all, this, just as a general observation, this is not the first time APCHA has done this. There's been other cases where a unit was deemed to be not in adequate enough shape to sell it or to have a qualified buyer purchase it, and APCHA has purchased the unit and fixed it and sold it. And the object and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew and Cindy, but the object, well, after APCHA buys it, is to recoup its expenditures to the extent feasible, recognizing that you don't want the new sale price to go over what the what has, the current sale price for that kind of a unit in the guideline. So that we try to balance the expenditure with keeping it within the deed restricted price for a new unit of that kind. Okay. Second, the 10% the 10% is only something an owner gets when they sell. It has nothing to do with a buyer. In other words, if party A is selling the unit and they can show APCHA that they put 20 grand into expenditures that are covered by specified capital improvements, they can add that to the price add that to their sale price. And it's not something that goes into calculating maximum sale price, it's added to it. The buyer doesn't, but capital improvements aren't addressed by the buyer at all at the time of purchase. If they buy a unit in whatever condition, they're allowed to make improvements. But it doesn't have anything to do with their purchase price, and it's only recouped at the end. Does that help?
Well, Tom, I understand that. APCHA is buying it. We can put 10% into it, and when we sell it, we can recoup that 10%.
Well, we can do more than that. because we
Well,
take
we
it up
can,
to max
APCHA
category.
has
Yeah, we can do
a-
max category, but what if,
APCHA isn't bound by the sale price. If it's buying a unit, it's obviously not a qualified buyer in the normal sense. APCHA is exercising a right of first refusal for the purpose of resale. So we're not bound by the 10% limit. In fact, APCHA typically spends more than that, but we still, when we sell it, try to make sure it's sold in accordance with the maximum sale price of a new unit within that category, so that the buyer is not spending more money, money that would inflate the cost in future transactions above what's expected within the system. You know what I mean? We try to keep it underneath the maximum sale price that's allowed for a new unit.
And that's what that is. In the regulations, the maximum sales price is for a brand-new unit. It's so, because the day somebody buys that unit, it starts appreciating and it's over that amount. So you can't look at it that all Category 3 units have to stay under that $287,000. That's not what that is. That is the number that we are looking to stay below, either right at or stay below, in order for when we resell it, we're not over that. But the day that somebody buys it, it's already over that because they're gaining appreciation. So all that's in our regulations is for anything brand new. That maximum resale price is for anything brand new. Because when somebody else goes to buy it 2 years down the line, they're paying more than that because it has appreciated.
you probably know this off the top of your head, what were 3-bedroom Category 3s at Centennial going for? Not Centennial, Burlingame 3, because that's brand new.
Right. Right, and they were a little under because these prices changed in January 1st of 2025. So this 287 is based on January 1st, 2025, Category 3 or 4, 3-bedroom unit. I think it's a Category 3-bedroom unit. So that's what that is. But so what Burlingame sold for, if it was a Category 3, it sold for less than the 287 because the 287 just is the brand new figure we're working forward for 2025.
Don't get me wrong on this. I'm fully supportive of this. I just want to make sure that what we're doing sets us up in the future.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're not. You're looking to recoup
Just so you
costs.
know,
We're looking at recouping costs.
In the last week, I've asked a lot of questions about the exact same subject to make sure that what we're doing when we set the sales prices on these units is consistent with both the deed restriction and the guidelines and the reasonable expectations of everybody coming into the system.
Oh, Tom, you make me feel so much better.
All right, I'm going to move us along a little bit. Any further questions? Any further discussion? So we'll move on to the second item on our consent calendar.
Need roll call, oh.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Are we all, the amendment then is for 287?
287,
Okay,
seconded by Ward,
okay.
amended by me.
Kelly,
Yes.
John,
Aye?
Ward,
Yes?
Carson,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is,
Quick follow-up question. When do we expect this to be completed?
Bought by us?
Yeah, like all the improvements, someone's ready to move.
Well, we,
Yeah,
The earliest someone would be ready to move in.
I don't think we have that information for you.
Okay.
Kelly.
do you have an expedited permit process through the city?
Yeah, I was teasing Ben Anderson about that today, actually, so maybe so.
All right. Next item on the agenda is update on the grant program.
Do you want me to share? Yeah. I was gonna feel bad, I give you a little chair.
I've had a house guy in Japan for the last 9 days.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen.
I'm struggling to keep up with it.
You know, I don't think you guys have met Emily Maynard yet, who is our new APCHA housing analyst. So remember, Liz is with the city, and Emily joined us right at the end of last year using some leftover funds, and then the position was approved under the budget process. So thank you very much for that, Emily.
I was worried you were.
Gonna say,
calling
and then
for
it all went horribly
leftover
wrong.
funds for a second, so.
No, Emily is that person, so we got her hired as soon as possible.
Where'd you work before? Why is your name familiar?
You probably recognize me. I did work at the county.
Okay.
before in
Yeah.
IT, so-
Oh, great. Okay, great. Nice to see you.
You too.
Welcome.
My microphone.
Okay. I did turn mine.
Okay.
I thought mine's on. Okay, great. And then the reason why Emily's up here today is because we're going to be working on the grant program together in 2025. And so this is a brief presentation because you received a presentation on the 2025 program just this fall, but this has some updated numbers in it. It's an overview of what 2025 program is going to look like, which is not too different. To let you know that we are hoping to open up applications for this program next week as well. It's been closed since 2024. And also, we have a new board member. So also to bring you and get you up to date on the program as well. So again, it's all things that information you've seen before. So in total, through that, since the program opened, which was actually October 2023, we received 92 applications in total. 46 were approved, 37 denied, and these nine were received very late in the program, and so they weren't evaluated. And for the most part, because funding was already allocated, or we were just preparing for the 2025 program pretty much. And so they will be sent the new application as well. And the 37 that were denied, most of those were basically right when the program opened, because usually they just didn't require all of the necessary information or were requesting repairs that did not qualify. And then from there, we were able to approve most applications after that point. And also, one thing to note, and you'll see later, is we did move some applications from approved into the denied back in December. Most of those people were folks who were approved for the repair in October 2023 and never made any sort of progress towards making the repair, but they will be fully invited to apply in 2025 next week as well. So they'll still have the opportunity. And that's just sort of the nature of approving applications before people make their repairs as well. We're allocating this funding, and that can change. So versus like CORE's grant program, they don't approve funding or provide funding until people have completed their repairs. So it's just a different program. Yeah?
This is kind of along the lines of vested rights. have we considered having a 1 or 2 year that you've been approved for a grant and have a couple of years to complete it? Like, building permit, you have, from land use to pulling the permit, you have 3 years. So just wondering if there's a cushion in there so some of those people that were moved from approved to denied don't have to go through the whole process again.
I definitely think that it is a long process to get some repairs done, but most of the types of repairs we're approving are able to be done within a year with accounting for permits and things like that. And also the idea behind the program is that it is essential repairs. So in theory, people should be in a rush to get these repairs done. Like, we usually see people get like hot water heater replacements done pretty quickly, boiler replacements done pretty quickly. It's more things like windows that end up taking a lot more time. But we are trying to build in more time parameters into the 2025 program to help people be on that timeline, and also just to help with funding cycles as well. But it is a good point. It takes a while, and it takes longer, I think, than some people realize to get work done as well. It's not always really easy.
As long as somebody's making progress and working on it, they stay in the approved.
That's the plan. That, and also just, even if maybe your contractor backed out, and so you're like, oh no, I thought I was going to have this done this month. I think we're willing to work with people, and as long as, hey, you're making progress and work towards this, then we can keep plugging along.
I'll jump in too. I think some of it was too, they had like ceased communication with you, and so it was, as long as you weren't getting the updates, then it's hard for you to know.
That happened too. Like, there was some people who I checked in with, and they had been approved over a year ago, but they're like, oh yeah, and they got on it. So that was part of it as well.
I think, Liz, it's fair to say the people we moved from approved to decline just hadn't done anything.
Yes.
Did we get any feedback on what was stopping them? Was it just their day job? Was it the
There were various reasons, I think, but on the particularly egregious people who we moved to decline, they just hadn't done anything. And there wasn't a particular reason, it was just, they just hadn't done it.
That was it
For
the
Scott's
most part.
amusement, at the onset of the program, we had people apply for grants that weren't even part of the actual program.
Yes. There was some denials with that, yeah.
Or was included in the 37 denied, or did we just?
Those are in the 37 denied, yeah. So that's all applications. So there's some of those, or people who are making requests for, say, common area repairs, which weren't eligible for this program as well, fall into that category.
Liz did a lot of outreach before we got to that point where we declined people.
Yeah, we're definitely willing to work with folks, but in those cases, a lot of time it's pretty black and white that it doesn't qualify. So, or if you're not an APCHA owner, we can't. So yeah, to your question, it was mostly just people who just didn't get around to trying to getting the work done. That was it for the most part. There was a couple cases of people got moved because they couldn't afford the upfront costs, or since it is all retroactive funding as well. Yeah. Anyways, and just as like a reminder, this is the list of eligible repairs for the program. This isn't changing for 2025, so we're really trying to focus on essential repairs. And then, of course, sometimes there's applications for things that fall outside of this that staff will review on a case-by-case basis. So here's just some summary stats from the 2024 program. So 42 out of the 46 repairs have been fully completed and paid for, and the grants have been issued. Those last couple, they just those people are usually right now finishing up their repairs as well. And so, as you can see, not the full $400,000 was allocated. Previously it was, and it's because of those folks that we ended up moving into denied, and not all of the funding has been distributed yet either. And the plan is to move those funds into forward into the year and for 2025. And so the average grant issued around $7,500. Average repair costs that have been requested is around $1,400.
I have a question. A comment, I guess. I guess it's nice there's 50-50. The averages are 50-50. Right, we're partnering in these repairs. We didn't do repairs at this building though, right? This is Merle.
This building.
I mean, this is
Burlingame.
Burlingame Seasonal, which is rental, and we're not funding repairs there, right?
It's yeah, I'm gonna be honest. It's
Good job, Kelly.
Okay, I was like, I didn't
the
think
gold star.
you don't qualify.
That was very. That was a good.
I don't know
observation.
all the inventory, but
Yes,
this
no,
one.
Rentals did not qualify. Yeah, nobody at seasonal
Okay.
housing would qualify.
Okay,
yeah.
great. I'll send you a photo of Burlingame. You can. I'm sure someone in Burlingame got mine.
Thank you, Siri.
Great.
Thank you.
As we get into this slide, I'm just noticing the margin, and I do think that it's good to share costs, but based on the grant match requirements, this seems far outside of the range that we were shooting for, and I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, so we have this match where if you're requalify at category 1, 10%, you're required to match 20, 30. And I think this maybe seems more skewed just based on the max being $10,000. So there's folks who have $30,000 repairs that still are only getting $10,000. And so those $30,000 repairs are going to bring up the average repair cost, but they're still only getting $10,000 for that.
So what we're saying is a lot of APCHA homeowners went out of their way to spend more to improve the APCHA stock for us.
I don't know about if they went out of their way to do more. It's usually things like roofs are going to cost
I wouldn't say
$30,000.
improve. Improves a big word. Maintain.
Maintain.
Remember I would use.
Maintain. Yeah, or so those $30,000
Repair.
repairs are things like roofs, expensive. Some of those boilers are up in that, and I have these numbers too, and I know they're actually in your packet, but or there's one person who had a water service line break that was on their property, and that was also around $30,000 for a repair. So I think that's what's bringing up those average repair costs, and then it's still anchored by that limit of $10,000.
That was a question I had on the hot water heaters.
Mm-hmm.
$8,500.
Had to be a boiler.
Well, I mean, I just replaced one, and I splurged and spent $800.
800.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at 8,500 and wondering how do we get to 8,500
Did
from?
you pay the plumber?
What's that?
Did you pay your plumber?
No, but I mean, I did it myself in, I don't know, maybe it was an hour. I mean,
Yeah, it's a little sweat and some copper pipe.
it's not $8,000 worth of work, and so I was just curious.
Well, it's 5 of them though, right?
No, that's the
the
average.
Oh, shit. Excuse my language.
You know, I probably can't speak super specifically just due to my knowledge of hot water heaters, but I think it does vary depending on, and in this program we didn't require people to get like multiple quotes or anything like that. And I think it varies on labor costs sometimes. And it does seem like there is a different scale of like where their property is and how much it costs and the type of hot water heater they're getting.
So you might get an on-demand one, which is a lot more expensive if you get an on-demand hot water heater.
Yeah, but I mean, I would be curious to see those numbers because to me that just
Seemed like a lot.
something is not right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's something wrong with that. With that, the rest of the numbers, I think
Yeah,
I
we
think the
can
rest
look
of the
into
numbers
that.
look. I think they look reasonable.
We can check on that.
Yeah.
Invoices, I mean, on this, I mean, that leads to that question. Do we look at invoices, labor seem,
Well,
I mean, you're right, because we did a water heater in the bank. It was $600 for a
Right.
65-gallon water heater.
right.
Yeah, I can double check that.
Well, because and I do think that because I mean what we might consider getting multiple quotes. I mean, because I'm sure when we dig into it, we're going to find it was actually a boiler or something like that. But I just sort of want to make sure that somebody's buddy is not giving them an $8,500 quote for something that they're doing.
Yeah,
on
no,
the side.
you're bringing up a very valid
And then
point there, and we can definitely look into it.
All for it,
Right.
it's covered.
Exactly right.
I
And
would also imagine that what we're speaking to here is also the rising cost of contracting in our town. And how, what we're competing with in a low housing or affordable housing authority like we are, we're competing with billion-dollar residents and ultra-high net worth families who are paying $10,000 a Christmas tree and then not coming to town because they wanted to go to the Bahamas. So there's a scale that we're talking about here, and I think that what we might be seeing is the market responding to the available demand, which is in the highest end of the scale. And what we're trying to do is operate at the lowest end of that margin. And so something like, competitive
Yeah,
bidding
but-
process might help.
I mean, the rest of
That's
the
a
numbers,
huge,
right?
that's a huge delta.
I mean, 27,000 for a roof. That seems right.
Yeah, that one maybe is a order of magnitude.
Well, we
error.
can,
Yeah, we'll look into it and see maybe if there's something like it got grouped with something else, or because sometimes there's people that,
There may be one or two that are throwing off the average.
yeah, and I will say we do require invoices at the time of receiving the grant as well, so we do look at those. And also going into 2025, we're hoping to have a stronger partnership with CORE, and we're hoping to tap into more of their expertise, and they're going to be looking at helping people in what they're selecting for replacements as well, and that might help with some of the vetting. But we're going to look into it before we know for sure where that number's coming from.
Liz, when you're looking
Thank
at
you.
the,
Kelly.
And I
Sorry.
can go to the slide too.
I
if
might
this is
just
helpful.
suggest that you get with the building department and just ask them what is a range, so we know we're not getting
Yeah.
fleeced. Like they're gonna know that comes in on all their building permits.
I think it's a good idea.
as you're looking at these hot water heaters, I'd be curious if anybody put in a heat pump hot water heater.
I know some did. Yeah.
Okay, so
And we
those are a
could get a
lot
count
more
on that.
expensive.
Yeah.
But and along that same line, if CORE had any rebates available that were,
Yeah.
our hot water heaters reaching the end of its useful life, and I've been looking at heat pump hot water heaters. So if people have done that, I'd be curious how that
Yeah.
worked out for them.
Definitely.
Just for fun, and sorry, I can't remember.
Red light is on.
Red light is on. Thank you. Just because you are super interested in it, right, these folks will follow up, they'll talk to the building department and get to more detail. According to ChatGPT, in Colorado, right, this is a more expensive, but in Colorado, the price of a tank water heater installed can range from $2,500 to $11,000 depending on the unit's size and efficiency. Tankless water heaters being more expensive than that, and that's a Colorado number. And obviously, ChatGPT is not always right.
We'll still look into it regardless, of course, and let
And
you know
if you
maybe
need a
what's
water
different.
heater, call Carson.
Actually, though, I know a guy.
Booked for the next 25 years.
Apparently.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit, we should, reviewing invoices for,
Reasonableness.
reasonableness, absolutely. Because we should have a leery eye a little bit. We want to help. We want to make sure stuff gets taken care of. But, I mean, you can go Google Lowe's at a 65-gallon water heater, it's $600.
Right.
And then you're paying a double on labor to put it in. I mean, it shouldn't be more than that.
Oh, you double with the labor? That's all?
Yeah.
Give me your tradesman's contract. I want their numbers.
Take your plumber's card too.
I mean, Lowe's will come put it in for you. That's part of it too. Is there? I mean, there's.
Right.
It seems like a big number, so I think that's just something we should be leery of.
Yeah, I do think there's also a gap of like some people who understand these things and where to go to and get the best deals, but some folks that it definitely needed a little bit more assistance with that and understanding the process for getting work done.
And do we have, I mean, if somebody says they want to do this, do we have any contractors or anything that,
Send them to CORE.
I mean, that have said they're willing to look at this stuff?
Yeah, and so we've been keeping a list of who's been doing the work for every single grant application. So while we can't recommend necessarily, the plan is to keep that list and say, well, here's the list of folks who have done
Awesome.
work. And I even have started reaching out to applicants too and just asking, how are you satisfied with the work done and the timeliness and the customer service to get that as well? Because it's varied.
Awesome.
So, and that's a hopefully something we can have up on our new website in the coming year too. So, all right, keep going. So here's category of applications, majority of them being category 3 and 4, and almost all of the category 1 applicants have been retired owners as well, just, you know, because we don't have that many category 1 or 2 units. But that's how that factors out. This you've seen before. Majority of repairs or replacements requested has been windows. And a lot of the time it's been original windows from fairly old units as well. And people have expressed a lot how much of a difference it's made in their home too. And then it's been in all the other categories. We've done electric panels, we've done plumbing and leaks, hot water heaters, furnaces, boilers, all of the things. So this is what we were just talking about. And so just number approved, so from that chart, and then additionally the average. And this has been estimated actually, so that's a distinction too. And maybe it would have been more helpful to have what the final, because I've been trying to update it, whatever the final grant is based on the final repair cost. So this is what their quote is at, which usually hasn't deviated too much from their quote in their final, but that's something else we can make sure to pull before we report back on those hot water heaters as well. But this was just to give you an idea of how much repairs are costing. So this is the last slide. So looking into 2025, we haven't significantly changed any rules or guidelines. Besides, we're just trying to build in some more clear communication about the timelines expected for completion of your repairs. So that way people know to still be eligible for this grant assistance, you need to be completing your repair, making progress on it by the end of the year. And along with that, we're planning to close applications then in October, unless it's a repair that's already complete or can be completed within the 2 or 3 months there. And it'll just be a case-by-case basis. And along with that, then in the fall 2025, we'll do probably another big review of the program to have a bigger discussion on the future of it, what's going to change, and what we learned from it these past 2 years as well.
It's just a rolling application.
Yep.
Somebody comes in and has a need.
Pretty much, yep.
So, don't beat me up for this when I ask this question, but ADA, it feels like an addition, an accommodation. Sorry, I'm talking into my hand. ADA, right? American Disabilities Act, I'm guessing we did a ramp or something. What was that? I mean, was that addition to a house? What was that?
Yeah, that one was, so we had, well, actually, so now it's 2 because someone else finished it. Because I think it only said 1 in there. Yeah, so it's actually 2 now. One of them was, which I think it's okay to talk about the specifics of each application, probably. Okay. One of them was floor repairs because they had cracks in their wooden floors and her husband was in a wheelchair. And so it made it easier to get around their home. And the other case was they lived in a ADA designated unit, but it didn't have an ADA shower in it. So it was not accessible for that. And so they changed that.
Okay. Thank you.
It seems to me if you live in an ADA unit that
should have a shower.
Yeah. It shouldn't be a cost to the person.
I have no idea what happened with that. I'm not sure. We could probably look at it, but it was, yeah.
I'm not sure, because some of the rules have changed over the years.
Code
I don't know
Yeah.
how long ago that unit might have been built.
It's an older building.
I'd have to look at it. So because there have been a lot of changes within the American Disabilities Act. So it might have been built before some of that was required.
I have to think there's a lot of those like that, because I think even in Burlingame too, where there were 80 ADA units built and designed and designated, they did not have showers that were like roll-in type showers.
So that might have,
So
like you
that
said,
doesn't
newly added.
surprise me, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Liz? Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
John?
Open the application.
Yes, sir.
May I suggest that you do the hearing officer now and flip that order? I think it would flow a little better. I apologize for not doing that earlier.
Sure. We'll flip the agenda, move to the discussion and selection of hearing officer position, and we'll put the summary of retiree focus below that. I didn't envision a format on this. I don't know if people have comments, how they want to handle it. I think we had the 3 hearing officers present to us last meeting. I'm going to just open it up to discussion and to see where discussion goes, and maybe move to some sort of a vote thereafter. Yes, Kelly?
I mean, I would suggest that we remove Tom Downey from consideration because of his interest in relying on Zoom hearings, which I don't think aligned with our hopes for the position. And that might narrow our conversation.
Just a reminder for me, Kelly, that was one from Denver. That's based
He
in
was the
Denver.
backup, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
He's doing one for us right now, but
he was qualified. He had a lot of regulatory experience. But I do think that the in-person meetings, I think that is, in making sure people feel heard, I think that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. And Tom Snyder's the one that recently moved to Woody Creek.
Saul, yeah.
Okay, well,
I think that's a good idea, Kelly.
okay, well, now we're down to 2. And I think that's a reasonable discussion, or suggestion as well. Do we have discussion? Scott?
My concern with Mr. Snyder was twofold. One, this sentence in section 5 of his fee proposal, which said, "We're interested in this proposal as a way to establish relations in the community." I don't know that that's the interest that we're looking for out of a law firm. I think help affordable housing program might have been a better thing for me to see there. The thing that really gets me is we'll charge this hourly rate. We normally charge a lot more, and we might be bringing in an associate lawyer to bring in for some of this stuff. The fee schedule didn't seem clear to me with Mr. Snyder and his proposal.
I'll jump in.
Carson?
So I believe that, he was advocating for just billing at the current rate, and then I think he had
5%.
a 5% increase, which I don't really have a problem with. Personally, Tom Snyder is who I would vote for. I think in looking at the hearing officer, I think it's really important to look at, what are we looking for? And for me, I grateful for all of Mick's work that he's done for APCHA over the years. It certainly wouldn't be the same program that it's been without him. I guess the question I have is, do we really need someone who is that involved in APCHA also serving as the hearing officer? Because I do think, and Tom Snyder made this point of when people are coming to a hearing officer, they really want to feel heard, and to quote Tom Snyder, they want to have their day in court, right? And so whether I have not seen any bias from Mick, but I have definitely had a number of people in the community approach me and say that they perceived it. Now, again, I've not seen that from Mick, but I do think that there is value in getting somebody who is not, closely interwoven within APCHA. Just because they're not involved, they're just going to be seen as, an impartial third party, whether or not, again, I've not seen any bias, but I've certainly heard the comments from the community that, that they would like to see somebody not involved in APCHA. Tom has, he's got litigation experience. He's been an advocate for homeowners and tenants. So for me, Tom Snyder is who I would pick.
To be fair, I've received some of the similar comments about the lightning rod that is Mick Ireland. And I just would be curious to hear from the board, what is it that you guys are hoping for in this hearings officer? Now we've heard this piece. For me, having intricate knowledge and experience with the program is a plus, not a minus. One of the things that I have heard from community members is the perception of and public relations and this as a branding opportunity, which I think might go beyond the scope of our decision here when we're trying to hire a hearing officer, but I wanted to hear the board's feedback on that.
Board, any commentary?
Yeah, I certainly appreciate all that Mick Ireland has done, not only as a hearing officer, but for workforce housing program. But I do, I think that that is something that it's a headwind with Mick is he's a very forceful person, and he does have, and I think every time that there's been a question of if he's biased, that the courts have held that he's not. But the idea that somebody should be treated fairly, respectfully, may not always be met by Mick. I don't question all of his judgments have been, I mean, they've supported APCHA. And so I'm really reluctant to go away from Mick, but I think there's some compelling arguments. The perception of bias and it's Tom Snyder would be, I'm sure, he would do well, I think, but I'm just reluctant to move away from Mick, and I know that there are people that think that the best thing we can do is move away from Mick, but it's no reflection on his, I think on his legal execution in the position. So,
Kelly, you have any commentary?
Well, if you want to let Francie go, or I can go, I think we both are representing more of the county position as a whole on this. I mean, I personally share, the same struggle that Ward has articulated, because, I respect Mick a lot, and he's a friend, and I have personal connections that are hard for me to divorce from my analysis here, but I don't think we can make a wrong decision in this choice, which is nice. But I'll defer to Francie.
Francie?
Ward, I have to say that your gift of diplomacy and your gentle approach when you talk about people is going to be greatly missed. Then I'm going to say that if I had a vote, which I don't, but I'll concur with Kelly's choice, I would vote for Tom Snyder too. First of all, I think having somebody locally is really important rather than having somebody in Denver. It's just too far. It doesn't lend itself to any kind of feel for the valley at all. And I also appreciate Mick's work, but Mick does a lot of work. He's kind of a hired gun in certain ways. And I think we should, thoroughly appreciate the work he's done and move on.
John?
I'll just add a couple comments. I totally agree with everything that's been set up here. I think Mick's done an incredible job, not just for APCHA, but for our whole community. And though I don't feel that he's been biased, the perception of bias is nearly as bad as bias, unfortunately. And with that said, I want to answer Scott's question. What do I want in a hearing officer? Somebody who's drama-free. Somebody who we don't look at who the judgment came from, but rather how the judgment turned out.
That's fair.
Well, I don't think I've been bashful in my thoughts for the last probably year on this. I wanted somebody that was faceless, somebody that wasn't tied as intricately with the program as the guy that I voted for the first time around, thinking he knows this, he knows his stuff, and he would be a great representation or a great representative of the program and a steward and a protector of our program. I want a guy that's going to interpret the law and make the right decision, and that's really what it comes down to. So my decision or my vote would be for Tom. Give the guy a shot. I had a board member on the fire board that ran ran for the fire board a few years ago. He'd moved to town. He's a wealthy guy, lived in the West End. He was an amazing board member because he wanted to get involved in the community and give back. He was in his 70s, very, very smart man. And so somebody like this that had moved to town wants to get involved, wants to give back to where he's living. It's just like all of us. That's why we're here. And so I'd like to give that guy the opportunity to do it. So I'm just going to open it up for, I'm going to nominate, I guess this is how we should handle it, but I would nominate a selection of our new hearing officer, the number one choice to be Tom Schneider. I'll look for a second.
I'd second that.
And I'll take a roll call vote. Cindy?
Who seconded it?
I did.
Carson?
Okay. Okay. Scott?
Yes.
Carson?
Yes.
Ward?
With some reluctance, yes.
John?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Matthew?
Do you want a backup hearing officer, or just worry about that if and when there's an issue?
I would move that we appoint Mick Ireland as a backup officer.
In case of conflicts of interest, etc. I mean, I can't think of what that would
is
be,
probably
but
the bigger thing,
What?
right? Caseload is probably the bigger thing, right?
Yeah.
You can worry about overwhelming if we've got a number of them.
How long have we had a hearing officer? And we've used the backup once?
yeah. I mean, maybe you don't want it. I'm just asking if you want one or not.
I was inclined to keep our backup as the guy that's our backup today, and try the new guy out and see where it goes. But I mean, I'm open to other discussion on that one.
Because, I mean, Tom Downey has done, he's doing
one now, yeah.
And this is his first?
Yeah.
And I think that's as a result of this discussion, right?
Yeah. Or we can,
I don't think we worry about a backup at this point. Francie, sorry.
I would say I think that's a good idea to go with the guy who's doing it now and, make the relationship with Mick clean.
I mean, having Mick as the backup defeats my thoughts, which is fine. I don't have to be right all the time, but I want the faceless officer who comes in, gives a rule of law. You don't have Chad Schmidt going bias in every case that Garfield and Heck takes on pro bono, and we move on and have a guy that interprets what our rules are.
And I think this is sensitive to my colleague on council's expression about wanting drama-free.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, there's nothing that would prevent us in the event that there was a conflict, just reaching out to Tom Downey and asking if he could take it on.
we would need a contract, so that's why I'm asking, so we can do both contracts
What do
at
we have
once.
today?
We have a contract with them.
What is this contract one-off, or is it
I
ongoing?
mean, that's a legal question,
Yeah.
which I'll check, but I imagine since we're redoing one, we redo them both at the same time, which is why I'm bringing it up.
Well, hearing the wisdom of the rest of
What's your input on that?
Well, you got a lot of discretion here. I think the way we have it set up now is that we had a contract with Mick, an independent contractor agreement, whereby he was the primary, but his contract said we used him as at our discretion, so there wasn't an obligation, although we treated him as the primary. And then I think we also had a backup agreement with
Downey.
Tom Downey.
Tom Downey, who is handling a case right now, and as the backup. And again, it was whether or not to use him was at the board's discretion or at APCHA's discretion. So nothing wrong with that or making that arrangement now and identifying, asking if you want somebody to be a backup, asking that person to have an agreement with us to that effect. It gives us a little bit of more, at a staff level, a little more firm direction on where to go if the primary has a conflict.
Well, it feels like feels like we already have the backup contract in place. Why do we need to renegotiate?
Yeah, that could just stay the way it is, you're right.
Yeah.
Assuming.
So you just go do the new
assuming
contract.
Tom Downey, that this decision, if you make it in favor of Tom Snyder, assuming Tom Downey wants to continue as the backup, I think the agreement we have with him now is probably adequate. I have to look at it.
Okay, well, let's, you know what you're doing, you assume, but that's my assumption.
Okay. So Thomas Snyder, primary, Tom Downey, reserve. Mika.
Perfect.
Great.
Yep, I think we have a vote. We voted on this already?
Yep.
So we're good. All right, so we'll move back up the agenda to summary of retiree focus group. Who's presenting on that one?
Let's- We're just all up here because we were all at them, so we can give context. And then this will also go to discussion in the executive session. Yeah, how do you want?
So what Matthew is asking me about is, and probably I'll just put it as a recommendation that you listen to what you're hearing about. This is input and for consideration, but that you hold off on discussion of what should we do with this until we have an opportunity to talk with you all in executive session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, so we had Liz, Meg, and I all participated in, well, we were in the background while Wendy ran these two sessions. We had 5 or 6 people at each, retirees who had said they'd be willing to talk with us. I think it was very good sessions in as much as people really appreciated being asked. They mentioned that several times. Wendy also mentioned, Wendy's followed APCHA for a long time. She did her Roaring Fork Leadership project on APCHA, so she's very aware of it. And she really noticed that the tone was much more friendly and helpful than other times she's interacted with APCHA, which I'm going to take some credit on APCHA. I think that does reflect our efforts at communication and outreach, is that we are moving the needle a little bit on that. Broadly, we were asking people about their situation and how, do they planning on staying in the Valley forever? What kind of things might impede that? What kind of things they'd like from APCHA? And I think most of all, nobody was offended or horrified that we were even asking these questions, which I was a little worried about. People were very receptive to having this conversation. And they brought up specific issues. And and the other thing that really struck us was just a broad range of opinions, situations. A couple people at each session, at least one person said, "Hey, let's try and figure out a way for me to get out of here." And then other people said, "No, I'm going to be here till my dying breath." So there was a broad range of opinions. We had a lot of different people in different situations. But it was a really good exercise in just reaching out and getting this. And we can talk through this a little bit, and then I'm just going to, Meg and Liz, what were the high points for you?
I think for me, it was really great to hear their stories and realize that, put a face to the fact that these are numbers on our page. They all have amazing just gratitude for the housing that they've had, and many of them have been living in their units for 40 plus years. And so there were no instances of people trying to kind of, I guess, slip in on the good system of being able to keep your retired housing or your housing as a retiree. So I think that was really good to see, and also a really high level of contributing to the community, even in their retirement, which is good to see. These people aren't just staying in their housing and never going out and being a part of our community as a whole. And they even were very open to having more opportunities to do that. Like there were ideas of maybe to keep your retired housing, you need to volunteer 40 hours a year or something like that. Because they felt very strongly that people needed to take it seriously, that this is a privilege and this is a blessing that is not available in many communities like this. And also just a general willingness to give and hear new ideas, you know, to find out better ways to make the whole system work. And that was really encouraging to see. As a, you know, I was surprised. I was kind of maybe expecting a few more negative connotations to their opinions on the whole thing. So I personally was very encouraged and really excited to continue working on the concept of how can we take better advantage of this and, you know, help people that maybe do want to get out of town but feel like they're stuck, and because ultimately we don't want that. And also just helping to better use and run their community so it's still, even though they aren't employees under the APCHA umbrella anymore, they're still contributing and keeping up their homes and just really respecting the inventory that is available to them.
No, Liz, you go ahead, I have another.
I mean, I think, a little chair. I think Meg and Matthew covered it really well. People are really appreciative for what the APCHA program has given them, and it was amazing to hear about the tenure that everyone who showed up to these sessions had in our community as well, and how much they cared about it, the program, and there was just a lot of appreciation. They felt like very collaborative sessions. And then I think we were definitely surprised by, there were some folks who were like, I'm going to be here forever, which makes sense. And then there's some folks who feel like they could see themselves moving on in the next 5 years or so, but there's this sentiment of being stuck and not feeling like that's actually a possibility for them, for a variety of reasons as well. So there was, yeah, a degree of situations for sure. And also quite a few people mentioned too how not all workforce housing programs allow people to retire in their housing, and something that they said that they want APCHA to be proud of as well. So they were really great sessions that I think we all got a lot out of them.
Yeah, I think they served as a model for future sessions with different APCHA audiences, so that was useful. And although I just said we've been doing a better job with outreach, I think it also highlighted we've still got a lot of work to do. Like there were a couple times in both sessions, people like, you shouldn't be allowed to move into APCHA housing and then immediately retire. And we're like, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. It's like, oh yeah, we really need to. Or why can't you rent out a room and make some extra money? We're like, you can. So there was still some things we need to pull out of the regs, and with Meg's help, we need to, things like that, we do need to go through the regs and really make that clear that these are things you can't do. These are some of the things that are advantageous to you living in APCHA housing.
Sounds like a good housing matters column.
Yeah,
how to
exactly.
rent your property.
Yeah, yeah.
I can write that. I have a tenant's return tenant in my unit.
But they, but they did appreciate, as Wendy noticed, the monthly column. I committed to going down to lunch at the senior center and meeting people, and they like the newsletter. So we are doing good work there, and they had some general good points about APCHA in general, which are things we are very aware of. HOA problems maintaining units. Yeah, here's a good one. Property maintenance, including reserve studies on all properties. Like, yes, we did that last summer. Yeah, so we still got work to do, telling people all the good work we're doing. And then it did veer off a little bit into property management issues and We reminded people that we manage the City of Aspen only properties, and there are definitely strains in some of these HOAs, which we have limited impact on, but we can certainly work to try and help out the HOAs. Anything else in particular you want to talk before we move to the other session?
I don't have any questions.
I'm interested in the feeling stuck for a variety of reasons. I feel like there might only be one reason, and I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
I think mostly financial, obviously, but then, I think a lot of people they've lived in Aspen for their whole adult lives, and just the idea of moving away from Aspen was horrifying to them. And then there was some very vigorous blue sky thinking about, maybe APCHA could run a retirement home down valley we could move down there. There was some ideas like that which we wrote down, and that, we did ask for some very out of the box thinking, and that was some of the ideas they came up with, which I think Wendy reflected in a report, and I did diminish expectations on that happening anytime soon.
I think community was really important to
Yeah.
everyone. And so beyond the financial barriers, there's a fear of not being able to find community if they leave. And I feel that, I think anyone would feel that, it's scary leaving your community, going somewhere else.
Especially the older you are.
So, yeah, and I think the older they get, in that sense of community, helping each other out is really important, because they talk a lot about, mobility issues and getting around and things like that, where they'll help each other, drive each other places, and do things together. And so just those little everyday functions, I think, are really at the forefront on their plate as far as worries and concerns.
Kelly?
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you think that you guys kept detailed enough notes that, like, if we wanted to hone in on an idea, you have a sense of which people in particular were particularly energetic about that idea?
I think we could track that down.
We just, instead of bringing, if we're like, we really want to talk about this thing, and you 10 seemed super excited about that.
And I have, since these sessions, gotten emails from certain individuals that are still hoping to continue the chat and produce ideas. And so, since the groups were small, I think that we were really able to individually kind of get to know everybody. Mm-hmm. And so I think we would definitely have a sense of specifics per individual.
Yeah. And I'll just say personally, I also hope we can do a Mid-Valley seniors community sometime in my lifetime.
You mean midway between here and Palisade, or what?
Mid-Valley, like here to Glenwood.
Okay.
Sedona.
A lot cheaper to build than
Sedona Branch.
Warmer, no ice. But
There's more happening than.
I'm going to hone in on something real quick and then probably move us on. But I think there is a real economic issue with some people being able to move out of their units. I've talked to some school teachers that have lived in some great housing that would be highly sought after, that would love to move on somewhere at some point. But we've had a very little success on our downsizing program, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with people are willing to exit the valley, downsize. If there's we touched on this on the edges at one point, but net bedroom gain, a financial incentive to get people to move out of the program, move out of their larger units into smaller units, maybe move out 100, out of the valley. And I think that's something for a work session or something in the future that we need to address. We can continually try to build more units, or the city or whoever builds the units continue to build more units, but I think we're still looking at 3,000 units that have capital reserve issues. We have people living in big units that have maybe a couple or even a single living in 3 or 4 bedroom units, and they don't want to give up where they're at because they either like where they're at or they can't afford to move out of the valley. But having opportunities to truly incentivize people to get out, I think is important. That's going to take some real creative thinking, so, and probably some real work to make it work. With that, I will motion.
Can I say something quickly, John?
Sure, Francie, sorry.
I'm sorry, I can't find, I have a new computer and I can't find the raise your hand thing, so I'm just waving my fat hand around.
Well, you gotta start jumping up and down.
Same place it was on your old computer.
No, actually, I can't access it. I have to move everything up. I don't know why, but anyway. I was wondering the same thing, John, about people not being able to move out of the valley, being concerned about that. I can understand if older people are concerned about moving out of affordable housing into free market in the valley. But I would think if they're going somewhere else, even the value of their homes that they live in now, I mean, I suppose if they're rental, it's a different situation, but we know that the cost of living almost anywhere else is less. So I would like to hear from the people who interviewed these people, if they gave you a reason for why they were really worried about not being able to move on.
So I think as we mentioned before, the big one was finances. It's also, community. A lot of people want to stay in Aspen because their kids are here. Kids came up a lot, kids and grandkids. I'd prefer to move to be closer to my grandchildren, but I can't afford it because if I sell this house, I won't be able to buy something else.
I think the high cost of buying new homes all over the country, because a lot of these are really old deed restrictions. So once you factor in the money that they'll get out of a sale, it's still not, it'll be $150,000. That's still not going to get you much anywhere in the country. And that was really a big comment, is like, I can't get anything that I would even like elsewhere with
Because I
this
think
amount of money.
almost by definition, the older members of the community, those homes didn't turn over very much, so they are lower priced than somebody buying now because they haven't turned over, so the sale price is going to be a lot lower than it might be for somebody else.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Ford?
Yeah, Francie, I think Matthew just mentioned one of them, that people have been living there for a long time and that they haven't turned over, so when they sell them, they're not going to get nearly as much out of them. But the other thing I think Meg brought up is that I think the older I get, the more I value my friendships, and moving out of the region, basically. So you can't move out of the valley to free market for what you're going to get for a deed restricted unit that hasn't turned over very much. So when you're moving out of the region, you're losing that fellowship and that community that you've for decades fostered, enjoyed, and loved, whether it's at work or as a neighbor. Maybe some neighbors are good to get away from, but
Well, I get that for sure. I just thought that given the really high cost of living in this area, if they were going to join their children somewhere else in the country, maybe they could, find something that was livable, but I don't know.
I would just say, if you look at the unit that we sold tonight for we're purchasing tonight for $255, and then you look at the places that they're looking at moving, Glenwood, Grand Junction, Front Range. You can't get anything. For $250,000, you're not going to get.
Yeah.
The median home listing in Grand Junction is $450,000.
There you go.
Actually, I thought it was $950,000. Not very long ago.
Could vary.
That's Glenwood.
That's Glenwood.
Oh, Grand Junction.
Oh, Grand Junction. My bad. Thank you.
Great minds.
Yeah, perfect. Further discussion? All right, I am going to motion to move into executive session for the purpose of determining relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and/or instructing negotiators under the CRS Section 24-6-40243 to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale, personal or other property interest under CRS Section 24-6-4024A and CRS 2024-6-40B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice on questions pertaining to deed restrictions and related APCHA regulations.
You want a motion?
That was my motion.
Oh, you made a motion. Second.
Roll call vote?
Okay. Kelly,
Yes.
John,
Yes?
Ward,
Yes.
Carson,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay, we will break for, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
To do what we need to do?
And and when we're done with this, we're just gonna end the meeting, correct? Because there's no decision or anything at the end. Because then I can let GrassRoots go.
Then I need a motion that we'll end the meeting at the end, don't I? Or we have to come out
I
and then
think
end
you
the
just
meeting?
have
You have to
Just
come out.
There's
but yeah,
nothing
and then
else
we
on
end
the
meeting.
agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I state for the record, this executive session does not need to be recorded because it involves the attorney-client privilege provision that Cindy referred to, and under the statute, if that's the reason, you don't have to record.
Okay,
But I'm required to say that on the record.
great.
Do we need to invite anybody in who the board normally would not have attend?
I don't know who's still, I think Bethany is still gonna stay on.
Okay, Carolyn needs to leave, whoever
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
But I
Um,
think
Diane?
all,
Is
I think
Diane
everybody, all the APCHA people are gonna
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah.
Or we'd love to be invited to stay.
Could we please stay? So we'll just give GrassRoots a sec.
Yeah.
I've
we
motioned,
did.
I've
Yeah.
motioned, we have a second,
The
we
motion has
voted.
been done.
Recording stopped.
Shut us down, you're out of here.
Stuff.